Hey there, my name is Rachel, and I want to welcome you to Mums at the Table. I'm joined today by lovely ladies that I like to call friends, Shona.
Hi.
And Rachel.
Hello.
And Fiona.
Nice to see you.
How are you ladies doing today?
Good.
Well,
that's very good because we have some deep topics today. And I hope you're ready as well because we're going to go deep and really deal with the heart issues our kids face daily. We'll be talking about helping your kids work through their phobias. Also, award-winning author Katrina Roe will join us to discuss her book, Lily's Balloon, which deals with loss and disappointment for kids. And we'll be talking about raising race-conscious children. So, you know, the subject of race is one of those ever-present but often awkwardly discussed topics. Kids are shushed if they ask questions in public, and parents are left not knowing if they should acknowledge race or take a colorblind approach. So, ladies, this is a heavy topic, and I want to know, is this a topic we should be talking about, or should we, you know, just kind of let it be and just, you know,
gloss over it.
Exactly.
Well, according to the article, we should be talking about race with our children and bringing it to their attention of people's different colours and things. But personally, I haven't made it intentional. I think what we have done, though, is surround ourselves with different cultures, people of different backgrounds and, you know, different nationalities. And that, I think, has helped create, you know, some sort of awareness to my kids that we don't just live in a world where, you know, we're all brown or we're all white. They just see different cultures.
So what about, like,
accepting.
as far as their identity? Like, how do they self-identify, or do they...
They know they're Samoan.
Yeah.
They know they're Samoan because, you know, the mum, everyone's speaking Samoan, their elders and things like that. But they actually have never come out to me and said, you know, this person's white mum. So we haven't got to that stage. I mean, they're 4 years old.
Yeah.
But I think helping the fact that we go to a church that is multicultural. So our church has people from Australian backgrounds, Indian backgrounds, Fijian backgrounds. It's normal. It's normal. So we haven't had to deal with the hard questions of why is she white, you know, why is she, we haven't got there yet.
Yeah, my daughter's 4 and I think that's when she cottoned onto the different colours because her best friend is her, you know, Papuan, so she's got the darkest skin.
Yeah.
And my daughter Scout was 4 years old and we were looking at some pictures on our computer. She goes, "Oh, Mum, my friend looks really dark in that picture." And I said, "Yes, sweetie, her skin is darker, yours is whiter." And that's when we had the discussion out of her curiosity, but she hadn't noticed it before that. It hadn't she'd only just started to become aware of it at that age. And so I'm like, "Yep, let's talk about it. This is what it is. There are different coloured flowers, there are different types of fruit. Like God made a huge variety of things. And I sort of drew it back to God and his creation for different variety.
Yep. So do you think we should intentionally talk about it? Because this is what the article said, was that we should actually make it more intentional, which is something I never did with our boys.
Right.
We were like you. It just never came up until the boys were quite a lot older, sort of 15, 16. So should we be more intentional?
It depends on the circumstance and situation. If someone has grown up in a situation that is just purely white, completely white privilege, everything white, I think it would be great to be intentional about that because they're not exposed to the rest of the world, I guess you could say. So I think there are circumstances where it's probably appropriate.
I think, like, from my perspective, to not mention it is to not prepare your child for any kind of conversation. It's like not talking to your kids about sex, you know, like they're going to come up on the topic. It's just going to be that you as a parent, I just think it'll be you as a parent won't be the one who explained it to them, you know? And I think I don't know, I think it varies. My son is 2, so we haven't specifically mentioned it, but I do think if I lived back in the States and I was with my family, it would come up as a more present conversation than what it does now. So I'm still battling how I'm going to have those conversations with my son.
The thing I think with our family is my brothers have married people who aren't Samoan, and so their cousins, my children's cousins, are different colours. They're, you know, they go from white to tan to dark skinned. So that also helps as well. And we live in a society that's very multicultural, and so it's accepting. And I think it goes back to what we're teaching our kids at home.
Yeah.
How do we, like you said, prepare them for the unknown? If you're growing up in a predominantly black neighbourhood or a predominantly white neighbourhood, maybe we should start venturing into communities that aren't of our own.
And I think it's not just about diversity, it's also about social justice. So expressing that within this whole spectrum of race, there are inequalities that happen. So I think having those conversations and preparing kids to advocate for other people if they see them in a situation where they need to stand up and use it.
100% agree. If someone says something that you know is not appropriate, I think it's a great opportunity for you to then say to your kids, hang on, that's not right for these reasons, and bring that conversation
doesn't need to be just colour, that's everything. The whole range of
gender,
variety.
ability, disability.
As parents, we're all just trying to teach our kids just to be nice to human race, not necessarily what race you are.
Because Jesus didn't discriminate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, how do you discuss the topic of race in your house? Or do you talk about it at all? We'd love for you to jump on our social media accounts and let us know, share your opinion. So coming up next, Gia and Olive are teaching us how to make some healthy granola bars that you can take on the go. And then I want you to stay tuned for some fun facts on phobias, because we're talking all about coping with irrational fears when we come back.
Hi everyone, my name is Olive and this is my mom. And today we're making granola bars.
We are, and what's in them?
Porridge.
Porridge! Oats, right?
Oats.
So can you put the oats in this bowl for me? All of them? It's 1.5 cups of oats. So this is the dry bowl. We'll make the paste in a minute. And what are these?
Almonds.
That's right, and they're crushed, aren't they? So chopped up almonds, so that's 1/3 of a cup of chopped up almonds. And what other dry ingredients we've got? What are these ones?
Sesame seeds.
Oh, very close, the pepita seeds. Pepita, so 1/3 of a cup of pumpkin seeds, right?
Can we try the raisins?
Oh, yes, they're not raisins, they're cranberries, but they do look like raisins. Can you pour those in? Take one and put it in there. I'll make the paste while she's doing that. So the paste for this, to help it stick together and glue together without, having to cook it so that it's nice and raw, we're using dates and honey. So I use 1 cup of medjool dates. Remember, the medjool dates are the really soft dates that are absolutely delicious. The kids love them. They froth at the mouth for them. And 1/4 cup of honey. And I just put it in the food processor, and I actually just process until it becomes pasty. Okay, let's start processing. Into our little paste. Okay, so it almost looks like peanut butter or some type of butter. So this is what it actually looks like. That is the key ingredient to make a granola bar. So what have you done there? Tell us.
I mixed it through and through until
It was all combined really well?
yeah.
Okay.
And I smushed it a tiny bit.
Okay, so let's put the paste in. Oh, these are going to be delicious. It's not going to cut it using a wooden spoon or any spoon at all, any spatula. You're going to have to use your hands, okay? It's really sticky. So what I've done here is I've lined just a small Pyrex. I've put some lining over the side, the baking paper all the way over the side, just so that I've got like handles when I'm finished from the fridge and just want to pull it out, make it easier. Okay, I just wet my hands a touch, just to help it from sticking to me. Make sure it's all evened out. Look, they're rustic, so you don't have to have it perfectly cut. Okay, done. And we'll put this in the fridge or the freezer for maybe an hour, half an hour, and we'll be back to show you what it looks like, and we'll cut it all up, and we are gonna try it and tell you. Oh, even just the taste of it on my fingers is good.
Hi.
Tell them your name.
I'm Alderson. We're making a rice sauce.
Granola bar, we're cutting the...
Granola bar. We're cutting a granola bar for the dinner so we can eat.
So that we can eat. I didn't understand much of that, but yes. He's saying we're going to cut the granola bar so we can eat. This is Moses, Olive's little brother. And we love him. He's sitting in for her. He's helping me for the first time, and he's so excited, aren't you? So our granola bar is finished. You want me to cut it? So let's just cut it. You can make it into a muesli bar size for the kids at school or for work, or you can cut it in half, so that way you've just got it as a treat for like your 3:30-itis. Well, do you want to try some? Yes? Okay, there you go. Oh, look at that. Look at this. Okay, I've got to show you this. See that? That's got cranberries in it. The mixture together is like, the cranberry has like a sourness to it. So the sourness with the sweet, with the nuts. This is a winner, this one. You've got to try this recipe. The kids would love it at school, and they're getting all their goodness. Cheers. Hope you enjoy it. Try it and let us know what you think. That's a good one, isn't it?
There are more than 400 recognised phobias in the world. A phobia is commonly defined as having an irrational fear of something. Women are twice as likely as men to develop phobias. Phobias usually start during childhood or adolescence and persist into adulthood. Statistics suggest that only 23% of people with phobias seek treatment. The number 1 phobia in the world is arachnophobia, fear of spiders. The number 2 phobia is ophidiophobia, fear of snakes. Don't come to Australia, we have spiders and snakes. Less common phobias include allium phobia, fear of garlic, aphibophobia, fear of teenagers, and phobophobia, fear of phobias.
Monsters in the closet, dancing shadows in the dark. If there is something to fear, kids will find it. And sometimes the fears are so irrational that you can't help but laugh. Do your kids have any crazy phobias or, fears, or do you have any?
I think definitely one of my daughters has a fear, but it's because I've passed it on to her because it's my fear. So I wouldn't call it irrational. I can completely rationalise that fear of animals.
I think that is irrational.
Of animals and insects. Like I just haven't had a good experience with them. So when I seen apparently once, because I don't remember it, there was a bug on my daughter, and I'm like, don't, it's okay, calm down, it's okay. I don't even remember, but apparently everyone was laughing. No, and now they're scared of animals.
Yeah.
So
You're getting visibly on the set.
I've had some bad experiences.
But even I heard that you're a little bit scared of flying as well.
A little bit would be an understatement.
Okay,
I am a lot scared of flying, but I do not let it stop me. I will go places, but I will look like a lunatic on the way because I freak out.
How many Valium have you got to take
Or the
before you get on the plane?
rescue remedy.
None, and I flew on my own about 6 months ago, and the lady who issued me the ticket, I didn't realise how stressed I was getting. She's like, just breathe, honey. But yeah, look, I can understand kids having a fear of things, and I think we trigger it sometimes. It's triggered from what they see on TV. It's triggered from a conversation adults can have that they don't realise kids are listening to.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do when your children start hyperventilating and passing out? And
I'll join in there with them.
No, but really, like, if your kids have these fears, we obviously want to navigate them through life to be successful adults. So how do we help them kind of deal with all of those fears?
I guess I'm with Rach. I resonate with the animal situation. I know there's times where we've gone to the park and we won't go to the park because Mum sees a magpie or a crow. And I'm like, sorry, girls, not today. Let's keep driving. But I think one thing that we can do as parents is even as a Christian, is just encourage our children, there's things that you're going to be scared of, but don't forget, God's got us.
Yep.
God is always with you. Jesus is always with you.
But talking rationally to someone about an irrational fear is probably not going to make a huge difference, is it?
Yeah, that's true. I think you
Been
need
there.
to see a psychologist for that.
But I
Get some
think,
professional help.
Even in the middle of all that, I love what you were saying, Fiona, because I've been teaching Jax these little Bible verses, and I've taught him one that's like, when I am afraid, I will trust in you. So I think it's like when you are in that irrational place, that you can kind of take yourself back to something that's grounded. Like, what's something that you know for sure, that you can absolutely say, like, okay, I know for sure that, the magpie is a bird.
They're scary magpies. And then it's no
the
joke.
helmet on with those tie things out the top of it.
Yeah, they put it in the school newsletters. Watch out for the magpies on the way home. So I've got traumatizing situations from when I was little, and the dog bit me when I was young. So anyway, that's a whole different ballgame.
So we don't really have any tools to help our kids because we're all scared ourselves.
No, I do. With my daughter, I do have to overcome them with animals, and I often will refer her to my husband if it's too much for me. But I will refer it, and when there's a spider in the house, and I know that one's not going to bite me, I will go over to it, and I will say, let's name it, let's, have a chat to it, and then when she's gone, I kill it and get it. But no, because I'm hoping to desensitise her to the fear that I've passed on, because that's not fair.
And I think that's the crux of it. You have to desensitise them. Like with Aaron, he had a fear of the dark. So we kept a light on, we put a Bible open, and we said, Jesus is with you, and that helped. I mean, that's not going to help in the case of a spider because he's an arachnophobe as well, but we just say, it's okay, it's a spider. I understand you're scared of it. This is what Mum's going to do, and she squashes it against the wall.
So you just acknowledge the fear.
Yeah, I
Acknowledge
acknowledge
your child's
it.
fear, especially if it's irrational. Because I think in this particular article that I've read, it's about this girl who was scared of water. So the mum couldn't bathe her daughter because she was scared of water, and she would bathe her in front of the TV with a sponge. So obviously some parents are dealing with some irrational fears. I've only got the simple, they're scared of the dark, the monsters, the magpies. That's from mum.
Well, I think similarly, I've seen that you can validate their fear, then you can project a calm confidence, even if maybe you don't feel it inside.
Right.
And then sensory calmings, you just help them breathe calmly and then help them face the fear and just be a little bit imaginative about it. So I think there are all ways we can kind of help them deal with it. Kids love to feel like we're their safe zone, and may we always show our kids that we're a safe place to turn to no matter how crazy their fears may be. Which could be something as simple as moving houses, which is why now we have Wellbeing with Colette, where she's talking about preparing kids for the big move.
When you move house, it is a really stressful time, and not just for the adults, but when we're caught up in the move, we can forget that kids are going through some real struggles as well. To help us out, psychologist and parenting expert Colette Smart joins us. Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Now, what are kids really going through, and how do they communicate their struggles when we are moving house?
I think the key is to not assume you know what they're going through. I think children can hide their feelings, particularly if they know that you're stressed. They can tell you're stressed already because it is stressful moving. So they tend to not tell you how they're feeling. And even if they don't look stressed, there's often stuff going on underneath, and small worries can grow into big fears for children. For many of our kids, even our teens, but little kids, things can show up in tears, tantrums, moodiness, explosions, a lot of that. And sometimes they look completely unrelated to the move, but they seem more volatile. And that's when we need to go, something's going on here and we're moving. So let's talk.
Because their worries are really on a different plane. Like as a parent, you're thinking, okay, have I got the removalist? Have I got the dog? Have I got the kids? What are the things that are going through a child's mind that they're worried about?
Look, any change, even exciting change, is hard because it's new. So as soon as something is new, it makes us uncertain and unsettled. So children will be afraid of, particularly if it's a local change, they're still wondering, is my bedroom going to be weird? It's not my space. So even your four walls of your child's bedroom is what's familiar, and that makes them feel safe. So suddenly their safety is out of whack. They wonder, will I still be able to play in my garden? And then if they're moving cities or countries, they begin to have fears about leaving their family and leaving teachers, leaving very familiar things behind. Obviously, I moved countries and my children were very tiny. And I actually wish I had been more aware of it when my children were little, because looking back, I realised how when my son was 3 at the time, a lot of his behaviours were actually displaying stress.
Right, and it helps you understand that they're not just playing up, there is actually something going on.
Yes.
So what would your recommendations be to help through that time and address some of those worries?
So I think really don't, first look at yourself and recognise that you have stresses and know that your children are going to be picking up on them. Don't assume that they don't see your stress. They do. Even if you don't talk about it, they will overhear you. So don't avoid talking. Talk with your children, even your little children. Ask them, what are you feeling excited about? What are you afraid about? This is what mummy's feeling a bit nervous about. Be honest with them, but then also give them some of the positives. So give them language, and then give them scenarios that are going to be positive, and things like things they can look forward to, help them actually go and see the place or see it online if you must, but so that they can visualize where they're going to stay.
And that would be helpful after the move as well too, I imagine, as well.
So I think after the move, keep things the same in the room if you can. Don't be tempted to redecorate your child's room on the move. Familiar smells and sights are very helpful for children. My daughter was only 18 months when we moved, and I didn't even realise having a familiar teddy with her. After we waited for our container to arrive, that teddy became her attachment toy for years. It's still in her baby box, but it was her familiarity. So have familiar things your children can pull out straight away. Get them involved even during the move to decorate boxes, help them feel like they're part of the process so that it's not overwhelming and scary and unspeakable.
Yes, so much great advice there, Colette. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And keeping something like that, a teddy, something familiar, sounds like a great idea when you're moving house. You can find more advice just like this on our Facebook page and find us online as well.
You know, another common emotion kids often experience is disappointment, and our next guest has found a gentle way to help you talk about it with your child. You may recognize her voice from your radio. Katrina Roe is presenter on radio station Hope 103.2 and is an awarded children's author. She recently released a book titled Lily's Balloon that gently deals with the topic of disappointment, loss, and learning to let go. Love to welcome you here to Mums at the Table.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Yes. I'm very curious about what inspired you to write this book, because, you know, an emotion like disappointment is quite a big topic for a kid, so it must have come from somewhere, I'm imagining.
That's true. I guess there were a lot of different things that were behind the inspiration of this. There are a couple of ideas. One was the way that we're all interconnected, and so often one person's loss is another person's gain. So, for example, if your child misses out on getting into their netball team, or, you know, their best friend moves away, often those situations, which might be bad for them, could be good for somebody else. So that was that idea. But there was also the idea that it's not all about you. Like, so often when we're experiencing some kind of loss or disappointment, we're just thinking about ourselves. I think it's actually comforting if you step back and see the big picture. And so in this particular story, all the characters do find hope or peace or joy when they actually look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those themes because I was thinking as adults we could stand to learn some of those lessons. So why even with those big topics? Because as you were talking about that, I'm like, wow, I could learn those lessons myself. Why did you choose to speak to a children's audience about those topics?
Well, you're dead right. And there were things in my own life that I was kind of preaching to myself with as well. But I think children in particular, well, childhood is a time when you're really open to new ideas. You're experiencing things in a very intense way because, you know, to a child, everything is felt, you know, very strongly. And you need tools to learn about the world. And I think this book, the idea is philosophical, but it's also very practical as well, because all children will experience loss and disappointment. And I think one of the byproducts of being the generation where we're always encouraging kids and telling them how wonderful they are is that they can kind of think they're the star of their own show. It's
And
all
even
about
as
them.
parents, you're trying to replace. If something's lost and your child's having a meltdown, you're quickly trying to replace.
We try and fix things, but sometimes it's okay just to go, yes, there's sadness. And the book acknowledges that. Like, Lily loses her balloon and she's devastated. And you just sit in that sadness for a moment. But then when you step back and you see that the balloon drifts off and blesses others, you realise it's not all about you.
Man, I need to pick this book up. The more you're talking about this is so many life lessons in this. I was actually laughing when you all were saying about how we encourage our kids to the point where they're like, everything must go great. Because my son now, because I say good job to him, even if I'm not there, he's like, good job, good boy, good job. So I think
Oops, self-talking. I love it.
Yeah, but I think it's good to have this perspective that, you know, disappointing things happen, you know.
Yes.
And earlier in the show, we talked a bit about phobias as well. And I know you have a book called Gemma Gets the Jitters.
That's right, yeah. So that's a book all about overcoming your fear. And so Gemma's a giraffe who's scared of heights. And the book deals with anxiety in general as well. But also I did have a fear of heights when I was a kid, so I particularly relate to that fear. But how she deals with it is firstly by acknowledging it and facing up to it, and then with the support of her friends starting to walk towards that fear a little bit, so taking small steps. And then it's just important that, you know, if you do have a fear, like as you guys mentioned before, not ridiculing it, but acknowledging it, that, okay, there's a reason for you to be fearful of this, but also to believe and know that you can overcome it. It doesn't have to control you, because I think there's nothing sadder in life than when someone is being held back by fear. So I think in this case, Gemma's a photographer and her fear of heights is stopping her from getting the best photos because she's not getting the good views. And I think it's a terrible thing if we're not reaching our God-given potential because we're being held back by fear.
I love how kids' books are so relevant to adults.
You're totally right. And that's the thing, if I can just say in a sneaky way, is that when you write a picture book, it is read aloud by the adult. And so like my very first book I ever wrote was called Marty's Nut Free Party, and it was about helping kids with peanut allergies, but it was very much as well knowing that this is going to be read aloud by the parents and the grandparents.
Don't bring this to.
Exactly. So you're sort of subtly getting it in there as well.
So going back to the beginning, you said, you know, you're talking about your first book. How did you get to write children's books? Like,
yeah, I know, right? You don't think you've got permission to do that, do you? You think that's something so other people get to do? Well, I was at home with my first child and I'd been studying a Masters of International Relations just for fun.
Hold on.
So I had something to do on the side, right? And then that finished up and I wasn't yet able to go back to work. It was really hard to find part-time work after having my first daughter. So I sort of thought, well, maybe I could give this writing thing a go. And because I was reading so much children's literature and finding it very powerful and impactful in my own life, I started to realise that, you know, when you read to a child, it's a very powerful medium to speak into their life because they read those books over and over and over again.
At least 25 times a night.
Right, exactly, right? And you get so sick of reading that thing again, don't you?
You could probably read it with your eyes closed.
You can't skip a page.
No, they know. Totally, right? But, yeah, so I just started writing in the genre that I was immersed in and the stories that were kind of making sense in my world, which was spending it all day with like a 2 or 3 year old. And then it was really just a matter of, you know, getting serious about it.
So you weren't serious about writing when you first started?
Well,
Tell me about that journey.
Look, I was, and I made a decision. My daughter was 2, I think, and I thought, well, there's 3 years till she starts school. I'll commit for 3 years, see if I get anywhere, and if I don't, then I'll have to rethink it, you know. And I started a blog. So I had a parenting blog called From Mouths of Babes where I shared my own journeys and struggles. And part of that was the discipline of writing.
Right.
But it was also just kind of, you know, giving myself permission to say I'm a writer. Like, you feel silly if you meet someone at a party, what do you do? I'm a writer. Oh, what have you done? Well, you know, nothing. So
I'm an aspirational writer.
Yeah, right? So, you know, the first step was for me to believe I was a writer, and the second step was to convince, like, my friends and family and other people and have them reading your work. And gradually you start to get a bit of encouragement. Like, people would say, that was such a well-written post, Trina. You know, I loved that. And I'd start to think, well, maybe I'm not a fraud.
So it was the affirmation that you could actually do it that drove you to keep going.
And I love that you gave permission to yourself.
Yes.
Like, that must come from somewhere in deep if it didn't come from someone else, because a lot of mums at home are going, I want to do this, I want to do that, but don't often give themselves permission.
That's right. So I think starting the blog was a manageable first step. Like, you know, I was putting myself out there, but in a small way and kind of, it's like a toe in the water, right? But at the same time, I was committed. I had to post every week and I set the time aside in my calendar that I had to do it. So I think that's, as a mum, it's often is a time people start a new enterprise, a business or a hobby or something like that. I think it really helps to schedule it. And in my case, I got a babysitter over for 3 hours a week, just those 3 hours.
I love you saying that you got a babysit over, because many moms won't give themselves permission for their hobby or for something like that. I mean, at that moment would have been a hobby. If you could just maybe share with us, or moms who are looking to kind of reinvent themselves, because that's what you did in some ways. You reinvented yourself after your child had come.
Yeah. Well, I think it's often a time of change for us, you know, as we take on that different role. But you draw on your strengths that you've already had, maybe using those same strengths in a different way. And then I think it's about thinking, what's the first step that you can take? So it might be something quite small. So in my case, it was starting a blog, but for you, it might just be, if you want to start a business, making this product just for friends and family to start out with, and then thinking about what are those next small steps. And the great thing was for me that I started small when my baby was young and my children were young, and then as it got more manageable, I kind of stepped it up a bit. But likewise, after I had my third child, I just had a bit of a sabbatical from it for a few months as well.
There's so many more things we would love to dig in deep, but I know you're giving some copies away of your book for our viewers. So if you're interested in getting a book from Katrina, we have some of Lily's balloons available for you. We have 10 signed copies to give away to our viewers. So email us at hello@mumsathetable.com and tell us how you would teach someone to deal with loss. Our favorite 10 answers will receive a signed copy. We'd love to have you join us again next time and to join the ladies. See you next time.